I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there because I don't want any other parent to experience what I'm experiencing. Schools ask for parents to be involved. But then when you have a parent that actually does, then it's a problem. My child, since 2015, has been diagnosed medically with ADHD. I haven't come from a background of having any type of diagnosis when it pertains to school or behavior or anything like that. As a parent, I was always involved in the school, letting them know, like, this is what's going on with him. He's medically diagnosed with ADHD. So if there's any problems with redirection or behavior, call me, which I've always been available by phone, by text. I'll pull up to the school. I've done all of that and work with the teachers, not knowing that it was the school's responsibility to go ahead and initiate a process so that way he could be evaluated. But long story short, nobody provided me with any protocols. Nobody told me what was available to me. Nobody even gave me any documentation or pointed me in the right direction to see what was available to ensure that my son was learning properly. So lo and behold, my son has just been passed through 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So now he is currently in the 9th grade, which I have removed him from DeKalb County District, and he's going to a different school where they actually teach. But lo and behold, it's a struggle for him to maintain or even be close to his level when he was missing such a chunk of education. I've reached out to the middle school. I've asked for someone to call me and give me an explanation on what's been going on. They all ignored me. So I filed a formal complaint. Okay, so I filed a formal complaint. You think you're going to get somewhere when you voice up for your children, because at the end of the day, by law, it is mandated that these schools teach on a level that prepares these kids for career readiness or college readiness. And lo and behold, I've discovered they're giving these kids grades and passing them along. And then we wonder why the crime rate is raising, why we're having so many kids that are running away, joining gangs, dealing with guns, just promoting violence in the streets, because they have no outlet. And then they're not being educated enough to where they can make informed decisions on what they want to do with their lives. So they turn to the streets. Not mine. And I'm trying to fight for mine. And this is what really, really, really pisses me off. Because as a single parent and going through this process, there are so many advocates and programs and people and resources that they say that's out there to assist parents of this nature. But guess what? It ain't. They want to cherry pick, or if the case ain't big enough for them to get recognition, they don't want to deal with it. And to be quite frank, a lot of people don't even understand the education law. And those that do, they're not like us, and they could give a damn about us. So how do you combat this? How do you step forward to fight for your child's education when there is no help, nobody wants to help, and the ones that need to be held accountable, they have the money to pay for the people that don't give a damn about our students to cover it up? I have uncovered where documents have been manipulated. I have uncovered where the district is now trying to fix their flaws. At this point, you might as well say the doggone court is in cahoots. I did a subpoena. First, I issued a FERPA request. I didn't get all the information I was requesting. Then I did a subpoena and arrived in person to do the FERPA, where I can actually sit and view and inspect. Because with my lawsuit that's going on, I needed to see if there are basically how they edit, how they input this information into the system, because I need to show proof that it can be altered, which they did to make their case, which is illegal. However, not only that, the judge denied it. How can the judge deny a federal law that allows the parent to view and inspect records of their own child? What's the problem? What I'm looking at, because my child has a medical diagnosis and because I've been telling the school this, and the school admits that they have been aware of this. So with that being said, there are laws that are set in place for schools they are mandated to locate kids who are suspected of having a disability. Because Child Find, the Georgia rule, it states that each state must have policies and procedures to ensure that all children with disabilities, birth through the age of 21, residing in the state and who are in need of special education and related services, or early intervention services are identified, located, and evaluated. So that's the child find law. But it also says for children ages 3 through 21, the local education agency, which would be Miller Grove Middle School in Georgia, are responsible for identifying, locating, and evaluating all children within special jurisdiction of the LEA who are suspected of having disabilities that may result in a need for special education and related services. It doesn't say that they have to classify them as having a disability. It says that they are to locate and identify, meaning at least submit a referral so they can see what they're working with the child. Now, had I known this early on that it was their responsibility, then I would have done what I would have naturally done as a parent. Like, look, we need to see what resources are available for my child. However, not knowing that this is their responsibility, nobody mentioned anything. And then they are what we call a Title I school, meaning that they are federally funded, receiving federal funds every year in order to make sure that these kids learn. Now that's getting into a whole nother thing, which is under the ESSA, which a lot of schools have totally misconstrued the law on that as well. That does not mean pass every child along. That means that the schools and the teachers are supposed to be held accountable to teach efficient learning materials so that way these kids have the opportunity to be prepared for career readiness and college readiness, which they still aren't. When I tell you this school has been low performing consistently since 2016, how are they continuously getting federal funds and nobody's implementing anything to audit these schools? I posted previously the video that they literally allowed roughly 6 months of these kids not getting taught math, which they passed those kids along. So you gave these students grades, overturned the appeal to promote them because they failed the Georgia milestone, and you sent them directly to high school unprepared, and they're not being held accountable. Now that my complaints are in place, the district is now trying to update and go back and fix things to show that they care about the kids and the students when they haven't done anything in years. My son didn't have books. My son, the work that he did do in class, they were all given worksheets. But what pisses me off is that I gave ample opportunity to talk to the district, the interim superintendent, to address these issues, but nobody wanted to follow up. Nobody wanted to call and say, hey, well, what's going on with your child? I attended the board meeting, even letting them know what was going on in this particular school. They say that they have a team in place that's supposed to audit these schools, but why aren't they being audited? How did they get funding from 2020 to 2021 when you have to submit a fiscal plan on what you're going to do with the funding in order to get approved to get funding? And their plan was backdated since 2019. So for 2 years, they continued to get funding without submitting a plan. And now you got a slew of kids who are undereducated. They ain't even getting a slap on the wrist. It's like, oh, let's just make this go away. But guess what? The kids in our community are getting this treatment. But the kids in other communities, they have extracurricular programs. But instead of the district trying to work with parents such as myself to try to correct things, they want to spend the money to cover it up. Now all of a sudden you're seeing publications of, the district agreed on awarding allotment of $877,000 to hire third-party CPAs to come in and audit the schools to see how they spent federal funds. We all know that that's not an audit. That's for them to come in and fix the books. So that way they're not going to get in trouble or people get fired for mishandling government funds. Those funds are to ensure that these kids are learning, but they're not learning. I'm not speculating. This is fact. If you look at this particular school's report card, 20% of the students actually pass out of 1,000, roughly. 20% of the students actually pass on the Georgia milestones. Not just the 8th grade, all grades, the whole population. And then after pulling the budget of the district, now that they've hired these third-party CPAs or what have you, you can see all this is public record. They're going back, allocating funds to stuff that you know they didn't even do last year. Come on now, make it make sense. The math ain't mathing for me. You allotted $1.4 million for nutrition programs to feed the students after school who stay after school for programs and tutorials and all of that stuff. Well, guess what? My child's school, they didn't get no food. They barely had a program where they stayed after school to do any extracurricular anything. Or they're entrusting these schools to manage the funds when it looks to me like they're just taking the funds and paying the staff. I don't have anything against what teachers make because I know they have a hard job. But if you're getting paid 6 figures and better, you need to do your job. Stop taking the easy way out and passing these kids along and along and along and along. Because at the end of the day, you are creating a worse situation for not only our children, but for our communities. We got all these people out here wanting to advocate for our communities. How can we make the community better? They want to implement more police engagement. They want to do everything outside of what's affecting the kids the most, learning and academics. Get on the teachers and make them teach. If you guys are in the position of auditing the schools, audit them. Don't wait till you got a lawsuit and then now you're trying to correct stuff before you get audited and everything goes public. I'm not the only parent who's going through this with their children, but we don't have many people speaking up for what we need. Their civil rights are being violated. Civil rights. But we got all these NAACP leaders and community activists and groups out there that claim to want to be for the community. Our children are our community. I've reached out to several. Do you think they reached back? But it's just not high profile enough for you guys to get involved. I'm a single mother fighting for my child with no help. Not because I don't want help. So I'm forced to read laws, read documents, produce documents, fight the courts who aren't in my favor. They could care less about my child. So I'm putting it out there. If you have any suspicion about your child's education, look into it. Ask the school for the child's records. Because what's not mathing for me, like there's no need to look into the fact that his learning may be impaired because of his disability, because he's passing. Yeah, because they make him pass. When you got teachers who input their grades after the school year has ended and they tally up the grades to give him just enough to pass, where are you getting these records from? Where are you getting his grades from? All of a sudden, he was struggling second semester, but he's getting all hundreds, and now he's averaging just enough to pass your class. Nobody wants to look like they're discriminating, which is against his civil right. I'm being denied my right as a parent in court because everyone's not familiar with the law. How is that even possible? But I tell you one thing, I'm going to figure it out. As I've done, I've made it this far. I've asked for help and asked for help and asked for help. But guess what? I'm tired of asking. I'm just going to fight.